Is everybody getting along? This will be part 6. Part 6 of the study, Arrival with Consequences. And before we get started, we're going to go over a little bit of Greek here. And by no means am I any type of Greek scholar. But you can do the same thing that these Greek scholars do. These words I looked up. I look them up in every study. It takes a lot of time to do it because you've got to read the instructions in these interlinear Bibles and stuff of how to read the Greek and the manner in which you come to the conclusion of what a word means. Those words you got to look up what they mean sometimes. It's very laborious to look up the meanings of Greek words and stuff. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of time. But we got to do it if we want to know, if we want to get the understanding of before the translators wrote the Bible, what it was. Because that's why we have all these different translations of the Bible. You know, you got the ESV, the NIV, the NASB, the KJV, NKJV. I mean, it's endless. Because words are substituted for other words. And we got to get to the bottom of that kind of stuff. So, when I go over these Greek words, I'm not trying to act like I'm some Greek scholar. Because I'm not. I'm simply using my noggin up here, just like y'all can, and look these words up. Because I think you'll be shocked at a lot of them, that they mean something totally different from what you assume or presuppose that they mean. And so that's that on that. But this study will, in this part 6, will start out with Matthew 16 verses 24 through 28, where we left off last week, and just hit on that just a little bit more. So we'll read here Matthew 16 24 down to 28. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "If any one of you wishes to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life shall lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake shall find it. For what will a man be profited if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man is going to come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and will then recompense or repay every man according to his deeds. Truly I say to you, there are some of those who are standing here who shall not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." So Jesus tells the disciples, for the Son of Man is going to come. Now the word going is going to come. The word going is taken from the Greek word mello. Mello is a verb. It's a word of action. It's an action word. It's action, verb. And it can have two lexical meanings to it. The Son of Man is going to come, mello, come. The first meaning can mean a word of imminence. He is about to come, or something is about to occur, or something like that. And we really don't need to guess about which meaning needs to be given to any occurrence of the word in any phrase or verse where it's used. Because we can know, because there's a grammatical rule that is attached to mello that helps us to understand how we are to translate it. It's either to be a word of imminence, something is about to take place, or it's something of certainty. Now here's the rule. The rule is when the verb is followed by another verb in the Greek text. When the verb mello is followed by another verb in the Greek text, and that other verb that is following mello is in an infinitive mood, then the word mellow needs to be translated as about to. About to. As in it's about to occur. If the word is not followed by, if the word mellow is not followed by a verb, and it's not in the infinitive, or it's followed by something else, then it's a word of certainty. That's the rule. Now let's look here. For the Son of Man is about to come. That's the way it should be translated. Because the word mellow here is followed in the Greek by the word ekromai. And that's in the infinitive mood. So the word mellow should be translated as about to. So look at what Christ is saying here. He's not talking about something that, 2,000 or 3,000 years away here. He's talking about something of imminence. Now, if y'all do a good solid word study on the Greek word mellow throughout the New Testament as it's used, and y'all look up all the places, if you can read Greek, it's easier for you. But I'm not very learned myself, but we're still able to do this stuff, y'all. You can still look this stuff up. Find the Greek word mellow in maybe the Kittle's dictionary. That's my personal favorite, the 10-volume set of the Kittle's New Testament Theological Dictionary. Or get an Englishman's Concordance at the Goodwill. There's pastors that die, and the kids inherit the house, and they just pawn off the grandpa pastor's library to the Goodwill. I've found a lot of good stuff, reputable theological books at the Goodwill. Get a good Englishman's Concordance. And look at all the places where the word mellow shows up. And every time there is a verb with an infinitive behind it, you'll be very surprised how often it should be translated as about to. And you'll be equally surprised that not every place that mellow occurs is to be translated as about to. That would be an error, to just assume that. It's not mellow every time. So Jesus is saying to the disciples here that the Son of Man is about to come. And sometimes about to can mean immediately right then and there. It could be a week away. It could be a month away. It could be all the way up to a 40-year generation away. And we'll see that as we move along right here. So in verse 27, the Son of Man is about to come. First, he says, in the glory of his Father. Secondly, with his angels. And thirdly, he will repay every man according to his deeds. Now, that's three things right there. Now, those three things have to happen if you have a genuine reference to the second coming. The reason I say that is because many people want to say that chapter 17 of Matthew, that follows right on the heels of where we're reading here in Matthew 16:28, that chapter 17 and the event of the Mount of Transfiguration from verses 1 through 8 is said to be the fulfillment of Matthew 16:27 and 28. And that's an impossibility. That's impossible. And let's see here why that is. Christ is talking about a second coming that's going to happen in the lifetime of his contemporaries. And certain New Testament scholars, in their commentaries, say the event of the Mount of Transfiguration was really nothing more than an advanced viewing of the second coming. And it's not. It's not. Now watch here. Jesus says in verse 27 in Matthew 16, three things have got to happen when he comes. First, it will be in the glory of his Father. Second, there will be angels. Third, there will be a repaying of every man according to their deeds. Well, that's judgment. That's judgment. In Matthew 17, the Transfiguration text, it says in verse 5, while Jesus was still speaking, and that was to Peter, James, and John. While Jesus was still speaking, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. And behold, a voice out of the cloud saying, this is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Hear him. The voice of the Father out of the cloud is exemplary of the glory of the Father. But it says nothing about angels in Matthew 17. It says not one thing about angels in the Matthew 17 transfiguration scenario, does it? And it's not in Luke or Mark's version of it either. There are no angels present. So what's the third thing that's supposed to be happening when the Son of Man is about to come in his glory in verse 27 of Matthew 16? What's the third thing? The third thing is he repays every man according to his deeds. That is judgment. There's no judgment going on in the Mount of Transfiguration scenario. So that argument right there, we together debunked. Now in verse 28 of Matthew 16, Jesus says to his disciples, truly I say to you, the you are the disciples, not you or me. Truly I say to you, there are some of those who are standing here. Now what would here seem to reflect? The standing in front of Christ in the first century as he says these words. These are real people in front of Christ in flesh and blood as Christ is saying this to the disciples and to others standing around listening. Truly I say to you, there are some of those who are standing here who shall not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. So in this text, verse 28 here in Matthew 16, some will be dead when Christ's coming takes place, and some will not. Some will be alive, some will be dead. Some will taste death, some will not. Those in the presence of Christ, some will be dead, some will not be. To taste here is not exciting the palate in your mouth, as an experience of the taste buds. That's not. To taste is to perceive, to become aware. Will not perceive death, will not experience death. And this isn't the Adamic death. This isn't the fallen in Adam death, because all of humanity tastes of that, right? It's pretty clear this taste of death is a physical death. So Jesus says some will be dead when his coming takes place, and others will not. Some of those standing here will be dead, and here was those within Christ's conversation, in hearing distance, as he was saying this to the disciples. It's not here like as in 2022, okay? And I apologize for being overly simplistic about this. I just want to be as clear as possible in regards to what the text is saying here. So the text is very clear. Christ told them in his first century lifetime that there are some of those who are standing here, standing there, who shall not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. So some would be dead when he came, and some would be alive when Christ uttered these words to his first century audience. So as many claim, if the Mount of Transfiguration is supposed to be the fulfillment of what we just went over here in Matthew 16, 27 and 28, then which of the disciples was dead 6 days later? None of them. Not a one of them. They were all still alive. They were still there. So it just doesn't jive that Matthew 16, 27, and 28 is fulfilled by the Mount of Transfiguration. It just doesn't qualify. Doesn't qualify at all. So in Matthew 17, verse 3, where it says, "Behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, talking with him." That's Peter, James, John, and Jesus. Talking with him. Jesus. Talking with him. The comparative passage in Luke chapter 9, verses 30 through 33, Luke says that when Moses and Elijah appeared to Jesus, that when they were talking to him, they were not talking to him about his second coming. They were talking to him, Luke's Greek says, about his equidou. About his equidou. And we would transliterate it into English into Exodus. That's what the word means. About his Exodus, quote, that he was about to perform in Jerusalem. It's not about the second coming. Moses and Elijah appeared in the Mount of Transfiguration for the purpose of talking about his Exodus, his deliverance of all the people of God out of the type and metaphor of Egypt. The sin of this world, delivering the elect out of the land of bondage. You see, that's what the Exodus story's pointing towards. The Exodus story points towards Calvary. It's fascinating how all this just opens up. And I do want to show y'all the corroborating passage that goes with Matthew 16, verses 27 and 28. And it's in the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 25, 31. In the parable of the talents. And it's just something else. Something else that whenever Jesus gives a parable about his second coming, and he gives his slaves a certain amount, he's the owner of the home, or the master. Clearly it's a picture of Jesus being the master. And he goes away and comes back. It's a picture of Jesus being the master, and he goes away and comes back. It's a picture of the second coming when he comes back. But if you notice, when the owner leaves, he always comes back to the exact same people that he gave the talents to. In other words, he doesn't come back to people some 2,000 some years later. All of the parables that speak of this subject are that way. Jesus, or the master, doesn't come back to the next generation, or the generation way, way off in the future. So let's read here once more, Matthew 16, 27 through 28, and then we'll compare it with Matthew 25, 31 and 32. For the Son of Man is going to come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and will then recompense every man according to his deeds. Truly I say to you, there are some of those who are standing here who shall not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. In Matthew 25, 31 through 32. But when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. And all the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them from one another, as the shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. Pretty familiar stuff there, ain't it? So Jesus comes in the glory of his Father. He comes in glory with all the angels with him. Then he rewards every man according to their deeds, separating one from another, giving out judgment. These parallels in Matthew 16 and Matthew 25 are just, the Bible fits hand in glove with each other, with the books, with each other. See how clear these scriptures are? All the scriptures piggyback off one another. This is Christ speaking to the fact that he comes back to the same generation. Just like there's only one interpretive view of justification by faith. One interpretive view of the Trinity and the Godhead. Well, there's only one message in the Bible of the second coming. The readers and commentators switch this stuff up. Let's go here to Hebrews chapter 10, verses 36 and 37. Hebrews 10, 36 and 37. For you have need of endurance, so that when you have done the will of God, you may receive what was promised. For yet in a very little while, he who is coming will come and will not delay. But my righteous one shall live by faith. And if he shrinks back, my soul has no pleasure in him. So how do we get 2,000 or 3,000 years from the first century out of the phrase, yet in a very little while, he who is coming will come and will not delay? How do we get 2,000 or 3,000 years outside of the first century with that? He's writing this, the writer of the Hebrews is writing this to the first century people. When the epistles to the Hebrews were written, it was getting really close to AD 66. And the book of Hebrews is dealing with the group of people not backsliding back into Judaism at the end of the Mosaic age. That's what the book of Hebrews is all about. Jesus is coming, and that law age is about to end. And it's about to go out with a bang. From AD 66 to AD 70. In just a very little while, he who is coming will come and will not delay. Do y'all see 2,000 or 3,000 years out of that? Let's go to Hebrews 9:28. Then we'll go here to Hebrews 10:37 again. So Christ also, having been offered once to bear the sins of many, shall appear a second time, not to bear sin to those who eagerly await him for salvation. For yet in a very little while he who is coming will come and will not delay. If the first century saints disregarded this, where would they stand in Christ's eyes? Hebrews 10:38. But my righteous one shall live by faith, and if he shrinks back, my soul has no pleasure in him. Let the scriptures mean what they say, and your faith in Christ will grow stronger, because he was and said and did what the scriptures said he would do. And we'll finish up on some more verses dealing with the timing of the second coming next week. And then we'll move on to just what the apostles believed about Christ's second coming. Till next time.